Hi, Google Hangout Tribe. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Hi, Google Hangout Tribe. It's Bonnie Bay, host of PBS's To the Contrary, and we have not one or two, but four of our panelists here for post-debate analysis. And I don't think the question anymore is who won. I think the more pertinent question is who changed any minds, if either of the candidates last night. And let's all recall, by the way, that in 2012, Mitt Romney flat out won the first debate with President Obama, then, of course, Senator Obama. So how much it matters whether you won or not is to be debated. But I'm interested in if any of you can shed insight into who changed minds last night. Why don't we start with you, Patrice?
Neither really changed minds. I think both certainly cemented support among their supporters. Hillary Clinton, she came across as well-studied, and she had some really good one-liners in response to Trump. Trump certainly pushed her hard on being that insider who is not going to bring a new perspective. For those who are in the middle of the road, though, and frankly the 70% of Americans who think the country is on the wrong track, I'm not sure if she made the case that she's the one to change the track that we're on. I don't see either one of them, though, as winning those who still haven't decided. And I actually don't know how many people are undecided at this point.
I think it's as high, their estimates, certainly 15% and perhaps as high as 25%. And a big chunk of those are millennials and millennial women in particular. Avis, do you think she did anything to win over millennial women last night?
Well, I do think
and women of color, of course.
Absolutely. Well, I think that in terms of millennial women, she talked a little bit about college affordability last night. Generally speaking, though, women across the board, I think women could resonate with the fact that she was prepared, she was on her game, and she was obviously overly qualified. I think many of us have been in positions where we seem to be very prepared and a male competitor is like mediocre at best. And people have the nerve to sort of equate us as if it's close, right? Everybody can sort of resonate with that experience and could be annoyed by that experience. In terms of the Black community, I think that she made a very strong case with acknowledging institutional racism. I think that's the first time I've actually seen that acknowledged on a presidential debate stage, and really sort of tearing into Donald Trump's assumptions about stop and frisk and law and order being the solving of being some sort of remedy for the Black community, which, as we all know, basically is just a producer of more problems.
I was wondering while I was watching it, and this can go back to you, Atima. Mm-hmm. I was sitting there when he was talking about the Black community. I'm thinking to myself, how can he, with credibility, and maybe he can, I don't know, say to American voters of color that under an African-American president, they didn't do well, and under him, they're going to do better?
Yeah, I thought the whole line was generally laughable. He's kind of had that African Americans have never had it badder than now. I'm like, I think Obama said it best in his CBC speech, which was, I think he missed a civics lesson in slavery and Jim Crow. You've had the economy recovering to the points where, even those who were in poverty a few years ago are slowly, economically gaining in the time that Obama has been president. Those numbers have been the lowest since the 60s. So there have been small gains there, and there have been definitive gains. Also, the fact that Trump has a history when he was involved in the housing discrimination, that was kind of the hallmark of his beginning of his career. In the 1980s with the Central Park 5 case, you have him taking out a full page ad saying death to these, young African-American men, before they've even been tried in a court of law and now subsequently found not guilty actually in that case. So he has very little to no credibility in regards to being, a leader in the community when it comes to caring about, civil rights issues. And you could tell by last night his response was not to talk about institutional racism, but to pivot on, as Avis said, this law and order talk and talking about Black on Black crime and relying on that trope to sort of make his point about this is how you end crime. And really we were talking about the tragedy of two unarmed Black men who were killed in Tulsa and Charlotte, North Carolina.
All right, Rena, your thoughts on the debate. Who changed minds, if either person? Did we lose Rena? No, there she is. There she should be.
I think last night was a draw. I would say of anybody.
Rena, we have seem to have a really terrible connection to.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Oh, if it was a.
Go ahead. I think we're having technical difficulties, Rena. I don't know if it's possible for you to try, to log back in, but if you could, please do, because the connection you have is not working at the moment. So, Patrice.
Sure.
Patrice, back to you. Do you think what your thoughts about what Atima just said on civil rights, on drawing African Americans whose support he needs to win more than he's getting, the 2 or 3% he's been getting? Did he score points last night?
He might have scored a couple. I mean, he does highlight the fact that unemployment among blacks is still double, if not triple, the national average. And among young blacks, it's definitely triple the national average. So yes, while, we've had general unemployment is down, the black community is still struggling with some economic lack of opportunity. From the law and order perspective, I'm going to totally agree. I'm an ardent supporter of criminal justice reform. And the law and order approach has actually led to some of the unintended consequences that we've seen right now with overcriminalization and, mandatory sentencing, locking up too many low-level criminal offenders. But, I think he might have scored a couple of points for those who are saying, I'm out of work. I see a lot of people who say the economy is back on track, but what about me? That doesn't mean that he's going to win.
Are you talking white people or African Americans?
I think there are African Americans who, are not saying I'm going to go get shot in the street when I walk out of my door tomorrow, but are saying, you know what, crime is a problem, and I support law enforcement handling crime, although I don't support certain police procedures that go overboard. So there are some African Americans who totally support Trump. I am not one of those, but there are people who are saying, you know what, I'm looking at my community, I'm looking for jobs, I'm looking for opportunity, and I'm looking for security. And he seems to be saying something that's interesting to me.
All right, were we able to get Rena back? No, I guess not. Final thoughts then for you, or response to that, Avis, and then you, and then Atima.
Yeah, I think it's important that we, sort of take a look back at these numbers with regards to unemployment in the black community. The fact of the matter is, it is normalcy, unfortunately, that black unemployment is typically at least double that as white unemployment in the nation. This is not something that just happened in the Obama administration. And actually, during the Obama administration, the gap between black unemployment and white unemployment has actually decreased to be at its lowest point that we've seen under any presidential administration in recent history. So yes, there are differentials in unemployment between black people and white people, but number one, that's not new, and number two, it's better than it ever has been in recent history. Secondly,
let me throw another question at you. There's been a lot of talk that, when he talks about our cities are crime-ridden, African Americans can't find work, they're not getting educated, blah, 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 that he's talking about African Americans 20, maybe even 10 years ago, but there is a very large black middle class now. In fact, only, if you want to use the word only, 24% of African Americans are living at or below the poverty line. Now it's 9% for white people, to give you a comparison,
right?
But 3/4 of African Americans are not living below the poverty line.
Absolutely. I mean, really what Trump is a master at is playing into racist stereotypes of black people to appeal to white people. I think he has no actual honest intention of appealing to a significant number of black people. He is dog whistling his followers who are disproportionately white, and I would argue disproportionately right-wing and disproportionately alt-right, which in other words are racist. And so he is like playing into these racial stereotypes. And one last thing that I think is important to mention is his continual point about I did the president a favor by making him produce his birth certificate is nothing short of insulting. Absolutely insulting, not only to the president of the United States, but to every Black person who sees that for what it really was. It was a racist attempt to delegitimize the first Black president in the United States of America.
All right, thank you. And Atima, your thoughts, your closing thoughts on whether Trump wooed any African-American supporters?
None other than he already has, I think, quite frankly. And I think the most interesting thing about last night was really, especially this show being about, you know, issues from a women's perspective, is that I think suburban moms and suburban women definitely gave a second look to Donald Trump. You know, there's a lot of folks who watched last night who have not been paying attention like we have all season. And they saw a guy who interrupted her 70 times. They saw a person who, you know, was saying at the beginning, "Are you happy? I just want to make sure you're happy." You know, who got flustered when he was called on the comments he's made about women and that pregnancy is an inconvenience. And so, you know, like Avis said earlier, you know, all of that interruption and her being very calm and prepared very much sort of was reminiscent of those women who worked and have worked and still work, you know, having to prove themselves in the workplace and saying, you know, like, I'm willing to consider a conservative, but I'm not sure I'm willing to consider this guy. So I think that
did she accomplish one of the many things she needs to accomplish if she's going to win, especially with the polls tightening? Did she excite more African Americans? Congresswoman Donna Edwards of Maryland was on our show week before last, and she was going out hitting the campaign trail for Hillary, saying that, you know, Black women particularly needed to get excited about Hillary. Did she do anything to achieve that?
I think so. I think between, you know, if nobody understands, I think, gender discrimination and racial discrimination the way Black women do and women of color in general do. And I think between her, you know, composure and dealing with obviously sort of the double standard in preparation, that she all she has to do is be likable and warm, is one comment I heard on the news, to him just being able to put sentences together, to, you know, literally talking about racial discrimination, institutionalized racism, disparity in prison sentences, something that's very important to Black women who are very much the backbone, respectively, of our communities. I think that definitely appealed more. I think she's cognizant of that, and that's why she has the Mothers of the Movement going on the trail, and it's a constant talking point for her.
You are a political professional. You were a delegate from Virginia to the DNC, the Democratic Convention. Will the polls move in her favor because of this debate?
I think so. I want to see, certainly with the Nielsen ratings, everybody projected about 100 million people would be watching. And so I think we'll see in those numbers, it's, you know, if it's 100 million people or close to who watched and how it broke down in battleground states, I think the next few days you'll be able to tell. These online polls are a snapshot of people who obviously, I mean, I get sent those things to, you know, like say I who won the debate all the time. So, you know, I think the online polls are less to be looked at and really more so what's going to come out in the next few days.
Terrific. Thank you all so much, Avis, Patrice Lee, Avis Jones DeWeever, and Atima Omara. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.